Police officers stand by a searched property in Frankfurt during a raid against so-called Reich citizens in Frankfurt, Germany, Wednesday, December 7, 2022. Police officers stand by a searched property in Frankfurt during a raid against so-called Reich citizens in Frankfurt, Germany, Wednesday, December 7, 2022. Thousands of police carried out a series of raids across much of Germany on Wednesday against suspected far-right extremists who allegedly sought to overthrow the state in an armed coup. Federal prosecutors said some 3,000 officers conducted searches at 130 sites in 11 of Germany's 16 states against adherents of the so-called Reich citizens movement. Some members of the grouping reject Germany's post-war constitution and have called for the overthrow of the government. Justice Minister Marco Buschmann described the raids as an anti-terrorism operation, adding that the suspects may have planned an armed attack on institutions of the state. Prosecutors said 22 German citizens were detained on suspicion of membership in a terrorist organization. 3 other people, including a Russian citizen, are suspected of supporting the organization, they said. Weekly Der Spiegel reported that locations searched include the barracks of Germany's Special Forces Unit (KSK) in the southwestern town of Kahl. The unit has in the past been scrutinized over alleged far-right involvement by some soldiers. Federal prosecutors declined to confirm or deny that the barracks was searched. Along with detentions in Germany, prosecutors said that one person was detained in the Austrian town of Kitzbühel and another in the Italian city of Perugia. Prosecutors said those detained are alleged to last year have formed a terrorist organization with the goal of overturning the existing state order in Germany and replace it with their own form of state, which was already in the course of being founded. The suspects were aware that their aim could only be achieved by military means and with force, prosecutors said. They are alleged to have believed in a conglomerate of conspiracy theories consisting of narratives from the so-called Reich citizens as well as QAnon ideology, according to a statement by prosecutors. They added that members of the group also believe Germany is ruled by a so-called deep state. Similar baseless claims about the United States were made by former President Donald Trump. Prosecutors identified the suspected ringleaders as Heinrich XIII PR and Rüdiger vs. P, in line with German privacy rules. Der Spiegel reported that the former was a well-known 71-year-old member of a minor German noble family, while the latter was a 69-year-old former paratrooper. Federal prosecutors said Heinrich XIII PR, whom the group planned to install as Germany's new leader, had contacted Russian officials with the aim of negotiating a new order in the country once the German government was overthrown. He was allegedly assisted in this by a Russian woman, Vitalia B. According to current investigations, there is no indication, however, that the persons contacted responded positively to his request, prosecutors said. A further person detained by police Wednesday was identified by prosecutors as Birgit M.W. Der Spiegel reported that the woman is a judge and former lawmaker with the far-right Alternative for Germany party. The party, known by its German acronym AfD, has increasingly come under scrutiny by German security services due to its ties with extremists.
Five things to know before the stock market opens Wednesday. After big losses Monday, stocks tumbled again Tuesday. The Nasdaq lost 2%, the S&P 500 fell 1.4%, and the Dow slid more than 1%. Even with China relaxing its COVID restrictions, which should bolster that country's economy, investors have become increasingly worried that the Federal Reserve may keep up its inflation-fighting rate hikes for longer than hoped for. The Fed's policymakers are set to bump rates by another 0.5 percentage point when they meet next week. The potential for a recession next year, particularly as the Fed works to cool the economy. Several of America's top CEOs appeared on CNBC Tuesday to weigh in on the possibility of a slowdown. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said a number of factors, including geopolitical crises and sustained rate hikes, may well derail the economy and cause this mild to hard recession that people are worried about. Walmart's CEO Doug McMillon, meanwhile, said a recession might be necessary to take down inflation. And while GM CEO Mary Barra said she wouldn't call whether there would be a recession, she said the automaker plans to be fairly conservative in 2023. Senator Raphael Warnock made history Tuesday night by becoming the first full-term black U.S. senator elected by Georgia. While Democrats lost the House, narrowly, they actually gained a seat in the Senate. Usually, an incumbent president's party suffers big losses during the midterms. Now, while President Joe Biden likely won't be able to advance his legislative agenda for the next 2 years, he will now likely have an easier time confirming judges and any cabinet appointments he may have to make. It's a first for the United Auto Workers. On Wednesday and Thursday, the union will hold a vote to organize about 900 workers at an electric vehicle battery plant in Ohio, a joint venture between General Motors and LG Energy Solution. The employees are expected to vote in favor of organization, which could help the UAW set a precedent for labor as the auto industry shifts toward producing EVs and away from gasoline-powered cars. If they can show that the workers there trust the union, then other battery plants may have more pressure to follow suit, Art Wheaton, a labor professor at Cornell University, told CNBC. The GM-LG Energy Solution joint venture, Ultium, plans to build at least 4 more battery plants, while rivals Ford and Stellantis have battery plant plans of their own. Ukrainian and Russian forces are locked in bitter trench warfare in Ukraine's Donetsk region. The Russians are looking to capture the small city of Bakhmut in the country's southeast, after months of progress on the battlefield by Ukraine's military. Meanwhile, Ukraine has yet to officially claim credit for drone strikes on bases well within Russia's borders. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, likewise, said the Biden administration has neither encouraged nor enabled Ukraine to strike inside of Russia.
Southwest Airlines reinstates dividend after nearly 3 years as travel rebounds. Southwest Airlines is reinstating its quarterly dividend that it suspended at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, the latest sign of the airline industry's recovery. The $54 billion in federal aid that airlines received to keep paying employees during the pandemic prohibited dividends and share buybacks, restrictions that lifted this fall. The 18-cent dividend will be paid after the market closes on January 31st, Southwest said in a filing Wednesday, ahead of an investor presentation. U.S. airlines have returned to profitability and CEOs have been upbeat about continued travel demand, even while business leaders in other industries including banking and technology have warned about economic weakness. Today's announcement reflects the strong return in demand for air travel and the company's solid operating and financial results since March 2022, said Southwest CEO Bob Jordan in a news release. Southwest reiterated it expects fourth-quarter revenue to be up as much as 17% over 2019, before the pandemic, a sign higher fares continue to drive airlines' recovery. The Dallas-based airline said it expects to grow capacity next year by up to 15% compared with 2022. Southwest's investor presentation is scheduled to begin at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, and executives will likely be questioned about costs, pilot hiring, pending labor contracts and expectations for when Boeing's 737 MAX 7, the smallest in the MAX family, could be certified to fly. The planes are currently subject to new cockpit alert standards, and lawmakers haven't issued a waiver before a year-end deadline under the rules, put in place after 2 MAX crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia. Southwest said its 2023 capital expenditures would range from $4 billion to $4.5 billion, largely payments to Boeing for new planes. The airline has both 737 MAX 8 and MAX 7s on order. The carrier expects to take delivery of about 100 planes next year, fewer than outlined in its order book because of MAX 7 certification delays and anticipated Boeing supply chain problems, it said in the presentation.